Ukraine has launched a new program allowing foreign defense companies to test prototype weapons directly on the battlefield. Announced by the government-backed tech incubator Brave One, the Test in Ukraine initiative invites allied nations to send drones, munitions, electronic warfare, and AI systems for real-world testing, and in return, companies receive performance reports and suggestions for improvements. The program also promotes co-production with Ukrainian firms, Euronews has reported. Now this move follows recent EU-Ukrainian defense partnerships, including joint funding, industrial cooperation, and deals with countries like Denmark to build defense tech across borders. The $250 visa integrity fee will apply to many travelers entering the United States on non-immigrant visas, such as student and temporary work visas. The fee, part of a law signed by President Trump on July the 4th, will adjust for inflation in future years. Visa holders who follow their visa rules may be eligible for reimbursement, though the process for payment and refund is unclear, CBS News has reported. The Department of Homeland Security says that the fee requires coordination before implementation, and it is uncertain if the fee will be collected retroactively. Minnesota State Senator Nicole Mitchell was convicted of first-degree burglary after breaking into her stepmother's home last year. Arrested back in April of 2024 during her first Senate term, Mitchell has not yet said if she will resign, though the Senate Majority Leader, Aaron Murphy, expects her to honor a pledge to step down if found guilty. Mitchell denied intent to steal, claiming that she was just checking on her stepmother's health. Republicans have called for her resignation, criticizing her role in close legislative votes, The Hill has reported. Sentencing has not yet been scheduled, and prison time is possible. Korea has announced that its new Wonsan-Kalma Coastal Tourist Zone, opened on July the 1st, will not receive foreign tourists for now. Initially promoted as a key part of Kim Jong-un's tourism ambitions, the resort was expected to attract both locals and foreigners. Despite recent visits by Russian tourists and plans for direct flights from Moscow, a notice on North Korea's tourism site now states that foreign visitors are temporarily banned, the BBC has reported. The resort, built since 2018, has faced criticism from human rights groups over alleged forced labor during its construction. Charles Schwab reported a nearly 60% jump in second quarter profits, fueled by strong trading activity and higher asset management fees, amid market volatility driven partly by President Trump's tariff policies. Net income rose to $2.13 billion, or $1.08 per share, which was up from $1.33 billion a year earlier. Trading revenue climbed to $952 million, and total client assets hit a record $10.76 trillion, Reuters has reported. Shares rose 2.5% in pre-market trading. U.S. Treasury yields fell on Friday as investors reacted to strong economic data and rising trade tensions. The 10-year yield dropped to 4.423%, while the 2-year fell to 3.87%. And the 30-year fell to 4.99%. Sentiment was boosted by solid consumer confidence, improved housing data, lower inflation expectations, and stronger than expected jobless claims and retail sales. However, market concerns grew after reports that President Trump is demanding 15 to 20% tariffs on EU imports amid stalled trade talks, CNBC has reported. Analysts noted ongoing signs of economic resilience despite policy uncertainty. Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee walked out of a hearing after Republicans advanced President Trump's judicial nominee, Emil Bove, despite whistleblower allegations. Senator Cory Booker led the protest, urging Chairman Chuck Grassley to delay the vote for further debate, citing serious concerns raised by a former DOJ whistleblower attorney. Grassley refused, prompting a heated exchange and the Democrats' exit. Bove, a former Trump defense attorney, was confirmed by the committee along party lines, Fox News has reported. Democrats accused Republicans of violating Senate rules, while Grassley defended the move as precedent, referencing similar actions taken by Democrats back in 2023. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has called for the prosecution of former U.S. President Barack Obama and top national security officials, accusing them of orchestrating a, quote, treasonous conspiracy to undermine President Donald Trump's 2016 election win. Gabbard alleges they fabricated intelligence about Russian interference, relying on the discredited Steele dossier to support claims of collusion. She says newly released documents show efforts to subvert Trump's presidency and has forwarded them to the Justice Department, The Guardian has reported. Her remarks have reignited debate over the Russia investigation, which concluded that Russia interfered in the election but found no Trump campaign conspiracy. President Donald Trump has signed the Genius Act, the first major federal law regulating cryptocurrency, with a focus on stablecoins, digital currencies tied to assets like the US dollar. The bipartisan bill aims to boost public trust and mainstream adoption of stablecoins by easing rules for banks and issuers. Trump, who has embraced crypto in recent years and launched his own crypto coin, called the law a step toward making the U.S. a global crypto leader. Critics, including Representative Maxine Waters, warn of potential conflicts of interest due to Trump family ties to a stablecoin venture that may benefit from the new law, ABC News has reported. Federal agencies now have 6 months to draft specific regulations. The Brazilian court has ordered former President Jair Bolsonaro to wear an ankle monitor, observe a nighttime curfew, and remain under 24-hour surveillance amid fears he may flee while standing trial for allegedly plotting a coup to overturn the 2020 election. Bolsonaro, who denies any wrongdoing, is accused of coordinating with others to prevent President Lula from taking office, culminating in the January 2023 storming of government buildings by his supporters. The court also banned him from social media and from contacting his son, Eduardo, and foreign diplomats. U.S. President Donald Trump has condemned the case as political persecution and threatened tariffs on Brazilian goods in response, the BBC has reported. If convicted, Bolsonaro could face decades in prison. A Tennessee judge ordered officials to deactivate Byron Black's implanted heart device before his scheduled execution on August the 5th to prevent it from delivering painful shocks during the lethal injection. Black's lawyers argued the device, which regulates his heartbeat, could cause multiple shocks and severe pain after the lethal dose. The state contested the need to disable the device, saying the drug would keep him unconscious and the order could delay the execution, which the judge denied. The device's deactivation requires a medical professional and is expected to face quick appeals, the Associated Press has reported. Black was convicted of a triple murder in 1988 and has had previous execution delays due to legal and procedural issues. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has defended suspending 4 Labour MPs for repeatedly defying the party whip, saying all MPs must uphold the party's manifesto for change. The suspended MPs voted against welfare cuts and are now sitting as independents pending review. Starmer insisted discipline is necessary to deliver Labour's agenda, despite criticism from backbenchers who argued the suspensions undermine party unity, Sky News has reported. Critics warn the move risks alienating voters and boosting support for the Reform Party, while others call for greater tolerance of dissent within Labour ranks. Chancellor Friedrich Merz and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer signed the Kensington Treaty, a historic agreement to deepen cooperation between the United Kingdom and Germany on migration, defence, trade, and education. Despite expressing regret over Brexit, Merz proposed a strategic access between London, Paris, and Berlin to tackle illegal migration and enhance defense ties. The treaty includes joint efforts to counter Russian threats, develop defense technologies, and expand cultural exchanges. Starmer welcomed the partnership, highlighting Germany's commitment to tighten laws against channel smuggling, The Guardian has reported. The pact signals a push for stronger European coordination amid rising global uncertainty. Government, led by the Labour Party, has announced plans to lower the voting age from 18 to 16 ahead of the next general election, a move critics say is aimed at benefiting the political left. The reform, part of broader electoral changes, also includes expanding voter ID to include bank cards and tightening rules on foreign interference and donations. Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Deputy PM Angela Rayner argued the change gives young people a fair say in their future. Opposition figures, including Conservative MPs and Reform UK leader Nigel Farage, accused Labour of trying to manipulate the electorate, Fox News has reported. The proposal still requires parliamentary approval. Trump administration has asked a federal judge to unseal years-old grand jury testimony related to Jeffrey Epstein, citing strong public interest. The move, directed by President Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi, comes amid criticism over the administration's handling of the Epstein case. The Justice Department also filed a similar request in Ghislaine Maxwell's case. Officials say no evidence was found to support claims of a, quote, client list or Epstein's murder, CNN reported. A judge must now consult with victims and uncharged individuals before deciding whether to release the testimony, a process that could take weeks or even months. Cambodian authorities have intensified their crackdown on online scam operations, arresting over 500 suspects in 2 provinces, bringing the total detained since the 27th of June to more than 2,100. The raids targeted 43 locations and involved foreign nationals from countries like Vietnam, China, Indonesia, and Bangladesh. The crackdown, led by the Prime Minister, comes amid growing international criticism over Cambodia's role in global cybercrime. Many scam centers reportedly exploit foreign workers under threats of violence, the Associated Press has reported. Human rights groups welcome the effort, but stress it comes after years of inaction and alleged police complicity. Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern are in merger talks to form the largest railroad in North America, connecting the East and the West Coast. The deal would unite the largest and the smallest of the 6 major U.S. freight railroads. While both companies declined to comment, approval from the Surface Transportation Board, or the STB, could be challenging due to strict merger rules set in place back in 2011. Proponents say the merger would streamline shipping, but critics warn it could reduce competition, the Associated Press has reported. The STB's current split makeup and public scrutiny mean any deal would face a lengthy and difficult review. Reported intercepting at least 143 Ukrainian drones between Wednesday evening and Thursday afternoon, marking one of Ukraine's largest drone attacks since July the 11th. Drones were downed across 11 Russian regions and annexed Crimea, with several intercepted near Moscow. Drone strikes caused injuries and fatalities in the Belgorod and Smolensk regions. Ukraine said Russia also launched 64 drones overnight, with 23 hitting their targets. Both sides have ramped up drone warfare amid stalled ceasefire efforts, ABC News reports. July has seen record drone activity, with Russia downing an average of 90 Ukrainian drones per day thus far. And Khalid Mohammed Ali El-Ashiri, also known as al-Bouti, has been arrested in Germany on an international criminal court arrest warrant for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. As a senior official at Tripoli's Matiga prison, he is accused of overseeing murder, torture, and rape between the years of 2015 and 2020. The ICC, investigating abuses since Libya's 2011 civil war, has issued 11 arrest warrants related to the conflict. Hashiri will remain in German custody, pending extradition to The Hague, the BBC has reported. The ICC continues to pursue other suspects, including fugitives like former prison director Osama Najim. Childers, a former professional baseball player and father of 3, died Sunday while trying to rescue swimmers caught in a rip current off Pawleys Island, South Carolina. Childers, who was briefly signed to the Baltimore Orioles and later served as a police officer, entered the water to help 4 or 5 struggling swimmers. His body was recovered after a multi-agency search, CBS News has reported. Local officials expressed condolences and pledged to improve beach safety through public education on rip currents, which are a leading hazard in the region. Trump administration officials, Attorney General Pam Bondi and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, visited Alcatraz Island on Thursday to begin plans to reopen the former prison for housing dangerous criminals and undocumented immigrants. Burgum confirmed the visit on social media, calling it part of restoring, quote, safety, justice, and order. President Trump first proposed the idea in May, but experts warned the project could cost billions, as Alcatraz was closed in 1963 due to high operating cost, NBC Bay Area has reported. The plan has drawn sharp criticism, with San Francisco mayor calling it unrealistic and Nancy Pelosi denouncing it as a political distraction and absurdity. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev warned that Moscow may consider preemptive strikes against the West in response to increased NATO and U.S. support for Ukraine, calling the current situation a full-scale war. His remarks follow President Donald Trump's announcement of 100% secondary tariffs on countries buying Russian oil unless Moscow agrees to peace within 50 days. Trump also pledged Patriot missile systems for NATO allies to route to Ukraine, though details remain unclear, Fox News has reported. Ukrainian President Zelensky criticized the 50-day timeline, calling for faster action and stronger sanctions, while Switzerland confirmed U.S. deliveries of Patriot systems to Ukraine would delay its own. Fire at the newly opened hypermarket in Kut, eastern Iraq, has killed at least 61 people and left many injured or missing. The blaze, which broke out Wednesday night, trapped dozens inside the 5-story shopping center, with many victims reportedly suffocating in bathrooms. Firefighters rescued 45 people, and the cause of the fire is still unknown. The regional governor declared 3 days of mourning and vowed legal action against the mall's owner, the BBC has reported. The Iraqi prime minister ordered an investigation and called for stricter safety measures amid ongoing concerns over poor enforcement of fire regulations in the country. Pope Leo XIV has renewed his call for a ceasefire in Gaza after an Israeli strike killed 3 civilians sheltering in the Holy Family Catholic Church in Gaza City. Reports suggest the church was hit directly by a tank shell, wounding 9 others and damaging the building. Victims included an elderly woman and the parish janitor. Israel expressed regret and is investigating the incident. The church was sheltering around 600 displaced people, mostly children, the BBC has reported. Global religious and political leaders condemned the strike, calling it a violation of human dignity and sacred spaces. The United States and Panama conducted a joint military exercise, Panamax Alpha Phase 1, from July 13th through the 18th, to strengthen defense of the Panama Canal amid concerns over China's growing regional influence. The U.S. Southern Command's Joint Task Force Bravo deployed helicopters for operations focused on infrastructure protection and multinational cooperation. The exercise follows warnings from U.S. officials about China's military and economic presence in the Western Hemisphere, including its past involvement in Panama's ports, Newsweek has reported. U.S. forces continue to expand regional efforts, including medical and security missions. A massive fire severely damaged the main stage of Belgium's Tomorrowland music festival site just 2 days before the event was set to begin. No injuries were reported, but flames spread to nearby woodland. Organizers are now working to find solutions ahead of the festival's scheduled start on Friday, the Associated Press has reported. The cause of the fire remains unknown. Japan has launched a new government body to address growing public concerns over the rising number of foreign residents ahead of national elections on July the 20th. The agency will coordinate responses to issues like crime and over-tourism involving foreigners. With foreign nationals now making up 3% of the population, Japan has eased immigration to counter labor shortages, but anxieties remain. The Prime Minister's party has proposed stricter rules for foreign residents, while the Populist Leader's Party has gained momentum with its Japanese First stance, the Asahi Shimbun has reported. Polls suggest the ruling coalition may lose its majority in the upcoming vote. President Donald Trump claimed Coca-Cola will start using cane sugar for its U.S. products, but the company did not confirm this when asked. Trump said on Truth Social that Coca-Cola agreed to his idea, calling it a, quote, very good move, but Coca-Cola only responded by thanking him for his enthusiasm and promising news on new products soon. Coca-Cola's U.S. sodas are typically sweetened with corn syrup, unlike in some other countries where cane sugar is still used, NBC News has reported. It remains unclear if any change will actually occur. Astronomers have observed the earliest stages of rocky planet formation around a young star, HOPS 315, which offers a rare glimpse into the dawn of planetary systems like our own. Using NASA's James Webb Space Telescope and the European Southern Observatory, they detected solid particles and minerals in the star's gas disk, marking the first direct evidence of planets beginning to form. This discovery suggests that the process that led to Earth's formation may be common in the universe, the Associated Press has reported. Researchers hope to find more such systems to better understand how Earth-like planets develop. A 17-year-old boy has been arrested in connection with the killing of a 48-year-old paddleboarder, Sunshine Stewart, in Union, Maine. Stewart was found dead on July the 2nd near Crawford Pond, with the medical examiner ruling her death a homicide caused by strangulation and blunt force trauma. The teen suspect, whose name has not been released, was taken into custody without incident and is being held at a juvenile facility. The investigation remains active, and further details have not been disclosed, NBC News has reported. Friends describe Stewart as a resilient and loyal person with a background in carpentry and marine biology. SpaceX launched 26 more Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit on Tuesday, July the 15th, from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The Falcon 9 rocket lifted off at 7:05 p.m. local time and then successfully deployed the satellites into orbit. The rocket's first stage landed on the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You, which was in the Pacific Ocean, Space.com has reported. This mission brings the total number of active Starlink satellites to over 7,950, as SpaceX continues to expand its internet megaconstellation, with FCC approval for 12,000 satellites and plans for up to 30,000 more. Sotheby's auction in New York, the largest Martian meteorite ever found on Earth, sold for $5.3 million, setting a record as the most valuable meteorite ever auctioned. The 54-pound rock, discovered in Niger in 2023, traveled from Mars after an asteroid impact. However, a rare juvenile dinosaur skeleton stole the spotlight, selling for $30 million after a 6-minute bidding war, far surpassing its $4 to $6 million estimate, the Associated Press has reported. Sachs beat expectations in the second quarter, with earnings of $10.91 per share on $14.58 billion in revenue, both well above estimates. Profit rose 22% from a year earlier. Strong trading performance, especially equities trading, which jumped 36%, drove most of the gains. Fixed income trading and investment banking also beat forecast, while the asset and wealth management division underperformed, CNN has reported. Goldman shares were up 23% for the year before the results. Stocks swung sharply Wednesday after reports that President Trump was considering firing Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Markets initially fell but then rebounded when Trump denied that he planned to remove Powell in the near future, though he didn't rule it out entirely. The S&P 500 closed up 0.32%, the Nasdaq 0.26%, and the Dow 0.53%. Traders remained weary given Trump's repeated calls for steep rate cuts. Meanwhile, inflation data raised concerns about the impact of tariffs on prices, CNBC reports. Major banks reported mixed earnings, with Bank of America and Morgan Stanley slipping despite strong results. Oversight Committee Republicans say they may subpoena former President Joe Biden and former First Lady Jill Biden as part of an investigation into whether aides covered up signs of Biden's mental decline while he was in office. Chairman James Comer said, quote, "Every option's on the table," while Representative Brian Donalds called for all former Biden staffers to come and testify. The committee recently questioned Jill Biden's longtime aide Anthony Bernal, who invoked the Fifth Amendment, Fox News has reported. The probe has also subpoenaed other former White House aides, drawing pushback from Biden allies. And Prime Minister Mark Carney said that Canada may have to accept some U.S. tariffs as part of a trade deal, acknowledging the Trump administration's insistence on including levies in negotiations. This comes as President Trump plans to raise tariffs on Canadian goods to 35% starting August the 1st. Carney warned of possible further Canadian counter tariffs if no deal is reached, but said any agreement must be in Canada's best interest, the BBC has reported. Despite the trade tensions, most Canadian exports to the United States remain duty-free under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. And Trump will host a ceremony on Wednesday to sign the bipartisan Halt Fentanyl Act, which toughens prison sentences for trafficking fentanyl and its copycat variants by classifying them as Scheduled I drugs. The legislation aims to close legal loopholes and help law enforcement target traffickers. Critics warn it could impose harsh penalties on drug users, CNN has reported. Families who lost loved ones to fentanyl overdoses will speak at the event, which will also be attended by congressional leaders and law enforcement groups. Current and former Louisiana police chiefs, a U.S. Marshal, and a businessman have been federally indicted in a large visa fraud scheme. Prosecutors say they took bribes to create false police reports so non-citizens could fraudulently obtain U visas meant for crime victims. The businessman allegedly paid officers $5,000 per fake report over nearly a decade, NBC News reported. The five face multiple charges, including conspiracy, visa fraud, mail fraud, bribery, and money laundering. John Mariani, 28 years old, died after being struck by lightning while playing golf at a course in New Jersey on July the 8th. He was participating in an all-day competition with his father, who tried to revive him before emergency crews arrived. Mariani was airlifted to a hospital but died days later. He had worked in New York City and was remembered as a talented and devoted to his family, ABC News reports. Funeral services are set for Friday. Is now requiring its corporate employees in the United States and Canada to work in the office 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, starting in October, up from 3 days. Those unwilling to comply will be offered a one-time payout to leave. The CEO has said that the change supports Starbucks' focus on, quote, human connection and its business turnaround amid falling sales. Some managers will also have to relocate to Seattle or Toronto, the BBC reports. The move follows similar remote work rollbacks at companies like Amazon and JP Morgan. NVIDIA announced that it may soon resume sales of its H20 AI chips to China after the U.S. government indicated that it would grant export licenses, a major boost for the company hit by prior export restrictions. The H20 chips were originally designed to bypass earlier U.S. curbs. The move follows NVIDIA's CEO's meeting with President Trump and growing U.S.-China trade cooperation. NVIDIA also unveiled a new compliant GPU, the RTX Pro, CNBC has reported. Analysts say the resumed H20 shipments and new AI chips could drive future growth. NVIDIA shares rose 4.5% following the news. 3 members of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's arson explosives detail were killed on Friday morning in an accidental explosion at a training facility in East Los Angeles. The blast occurred around 7:30 a.m. local time, reportedly involving an explosive device believed to be inert after a routine call-out. The victims, described as highly experienced, had a combined 74 years of service. No one else was injured, and the incident marks the department's deadliest day since 1857. An investigation is underway with support from the LAPD, FBI, and the ATF, ABC 7 News has reported. A procession and tributes are being held in their honor. Amazon is laying off an unspecified number of employees in its cloud division, AWS, as part of ongoing efforts to streamline operations and refocus priorities. The company said the cuts are not primarily due to AI investments and continues hiring in other AWS areas. The move follows recent revenue slowdowns and is part of a broader cost-cutting effort under the new CEO, who has overseen over 27,000 job cuts since 2022, CNBC has reported. The CEO recently suggested that Amazon's corporate workforce may continue to shrink due to the adaptation of generative AI. A judge has lifted the gag order in the Brian Koberger murder case after Koberger pleaded guilty to killing 4 University of Idaho students in 2022. The order was initially intended to protect his right to a fair trial, but media organizations argued it was no longer necessary. Judge Stephen Hippler agreed, but said court documents would be unsealed gradually. Koberger faces 4 life sentences without parole, with sentencing set for July the 23rd. Despite waiving his right to appeal, the judge noted a Supreme Court ruling may still allow him to appeal, Fox News has reported. A separate motion seeks to unseal nearly 250 documents in the case. Kaiser, husband of the influencer Emily Kaiser, may face a felony child abuse charge over the drowning death of their 3-year-old son Trig in Arizona. Police recommended charging Brady after he told them he left Trig unsupervised for several minutes near the backyard pool. The case has drawn widespread attention due to Emily's large social media following, Fox News reports. She has asked the court to block release of investigative records, citing her family's privacy and emotional harm. Stolen Cessna 172 caused a 39-minute shutdown of Vancouver International Airport's airspace on Tuesday. The plane took off from Victoria, circled over Vancouver, and forced controllers to reroute other aircraft, including a WestJet 737 that had to abort its landing. The stolen plane landed safely and the lone pilot was then arrested, CNN reports. Authorities have not disclosed the suspect's identity or the motive. Volcanic eruption on Iceland forced the evacuation of tourists from the Blue Lagoon Spa and a nearby campsite. The eruption began after intense seismic activity, sending lava southeast from a fissure, though no infrastructure is currently threatened. The capital has faced repeated volcanic activity since November of 2023, after centuries of dormancy, ABC News has reported. 20 Palestinians were killed in a stampede at a U.S.-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation food distribution site in southern Gaza. Witnesses and health officials say GHF guards used tear gas or pepper spray on the crowd, causing panic and suffocation. The incident marks the first such deaths at a GHF-run site, amid broader starvation in Gaza, where Israeli attacks have killed over 58,000 people, The Guardian has reported. Critics, including U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen, condemned U.S. funding for GHF, calling it unqualified, opaque group that is replacing established aid agencies with armed security while civilians die trying to access food. Have discovered a giant planet up to 10 times the size of Jupiter, hidden in the dense gas and dust around the young star MP-MUS, which is about 280 light-years away. Using data from the ALMA and the ESA's GEA mission, they detected the massive gas giant in the star's protoplanetary disk, making GEA's first such exoplanet discovery. This rare find, only the 4th strong detection of a planet in such a disk, could aid future searches for newborn planets around young stars, Space.com has reported. President Emmanuel Macron announced plans to significantly boost defense spending, warning that Europe faces its greatest threat since World War II. He proposed increasing France's defense budget by €3.5 billion next year, and another €3 billion in 2027, aiming to double the military budget to €64 billion by then, 3 years ahead of schedule. Macron condemned Russia's, quote, imperialist policies amid its ongoing war in Ukraine and emphasized the need for France to be powerful to ensure freedom. His speech comes as NATO members agree to raise defense spending and highlights rising global conflicts and nuclear threats, the BBC reports. The budget plan awaits government approval. A large wildfire, sparked by lightning back on July the 4th, has grown to 35,000 acres near Nevada's Area 51, raising fears among UFO enthusiasts that historic evidence could be destroyed. The Gothic fire remains uncontained and is burning about 15 miles from the secretive base. While officials say no one is in danger, conspiracy theories have spread online, with some claiming the blaze is a government cover-up to destroy hidden evidence, the U.S. Sun has reported. Israel carried out 2 airstrikes on Syria's defense ministry in Damascus, collapsing part of the building and injuring officers, as it intervened in escalating fighting between Syrian government forces and Druze militias in southern Syria. The strikes followed days of Israeli attacks aimed at deterring Syrian military deployment near Israel's border and signaling support for the Druze community, though many Druze reject being seen as Israeli proxies. Clashes in Swahida province between Druze fighters and Bedouin Arab tribes have killed over 200 people in 4 days, despite a brief ceasefire attempt. Fighting erupted after a robbery and has since spiraled, with Druze militias resisting government forces' entry. Meanwhile, civilians face shortages and violence in the Swahida city. The conflict threatens to spark broader sectarian tensions in Syria, where Druze leaders have called for international protection, The Guardian has reported. Israel has reinforced its border, warning its Druze citizens against crossing into Syria. 2 British men, Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers, were sentenced to over 4 years in prison for cutting down England's iconic Sycamore Gap tree in 2023. The nearly 200-year-old tree, beside Hadrian's Wall and featured in the film Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, was felled in minutes with a chainsaw. The act, called, quote, deliberate and mindless by the judge, caused over £620,000 in damage and shocked people across the United Kingdom, CBS News reports. Efforts are now underway to regrow the tree from its seeds. Scientists have discovered that Uranus emits about 12.5% more heat than it receives from the Sun, contradicting Voyager 2's 1986 findings that suggested it had little internal heat. Using decades of spacecraft data and computer models, researchers found Uranus is still losing leftover heat from its formation, offering clues about its origins and evolution. This discovery could reshape theories about the planet's structure and history, and inform future NASA mission planning, Space.com reports. The findings also help scientists better understand planetary atmospheres, and may even offer insights into Earth's climate systems. Researchers at the University of Florida have deployed 40 robotic rabbits in South Florida to lure and track invasive pythons. Designed to mimic the heat and movements of marsh rabbits, a common python prey, the mechanical bunnies are solar-powered, remotely controlled, and part of a conservation effort to manage the snake population. The project builds on years of research and aims to replace the use of live rabbits, which proved difficult to maintain, USA Today has reported. Future versions may include scent to better attract the snakes. FDA has authorized Juul Labs to continue selling its e-cigarettes and menthol tobacco-flavored pods, concluding a years-long review. The agency found the products met the legal standard for marketing, though not necessarily that they are safe. Juul argued its products helped adult smokers switch from traditional cigarettes. Critics, including the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, warned the decision could reverse progress in reducing youth vaping. Juul has faced past legal action over allegedly targeting teens, though it denies doing so, NBC News has reported. The FDA previously banned Juul in 2022, but later suspended the ban during ongoing review. A 61-year-old man is in critical condition after being pulled into an active MRI machine while wearing a metal chain at a medical center in Westbury, New York. Authorities say he entered the MRI room during a scan and the powerful magnetic field drew him in, causing a serious medical episode. It's unclear why he was in the room or if he was a patient. The incident is under investigation, NBC4 New York has reported. MRI machines pose severe risks when metal objects are nearby, as the magnetic field is always active. Bank of America reported mixed Q2 results, beating earnings expectations with 89 cents per share, but missing on revenue at $26.61 billion. Profit rose 3% to $7.12 billion. Net interest income increased 7%, but came in below the forecast. Trading revenue was strong, with fixed income beating estimates, while equities trading was slightly below expectations. Investment banking fees fell 9% but topped analyst projections, CNBC has reported. Shares were up about 5% for the year before the results. Cameroon's 92-year-old president, Paul Biya, announced that he will run for an 8th term in the October 12th election, potentially extending his rule to nearly 100 years old. In power since 1982, Biya is the world's oldest serving head of state and has faced ongoing health speculation. He abolished term limits back in 2008, allowing indefinite re-election, and won the 2008 vote amid opposition claims of irregularities. Critics say his long rule has hindered Cameroon's economic and democratic progress, Al Jazeera has reported. Several opposition candidates have declared their bids, calling for reforms and fair elections amid the country's ongoing political and security challenges. 9 people died after a fire broke out Sunday night at Gabriel House, an assisted living facility in Fall River, Massachusetts. Residents trapped by smoke screamed for help from windows as firefighters worked to rescue them. About 30 people were hospitalized, one in critical condition. Officials said the cause does not appear suspicious but is under investigation. Concerns have been raised about staffing levels impacting the response, CNN has reported. Several firefighters were also treated for minor injuries. German customs officials seized around 1,500 young tarantulas hidden in chocolate cake boxes at Cologne Bonn Airport in a shipment from Vietnam. Alerted by an unusual smell, officers found the spiders in plastic containers, with many not surviving the trip. The surviving tarantulas were handed over to an expert, The Guardian has reported. Authorities are pursuing criminal charges against the intended recipient for customs and animal welfare violations. Australia's largest ever military exercise is underway, involving over 35,000 troops from 19 nations. Live-fire drills with newly equipped HIMARS launchers were conducted in Queensland. The U.S.-Australia exercise is also being held in Papua New Guinea for the first time. Chinese surveillance ships are expected to monitor the drills as in past years, ABC News reported. The exercise began as Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese started a visit to China, but said the surveillance issue would not be raised with Chinese President Xi Jinping. People were detained after violent clashes in Spain between far-right groups, local residents, and migrants. The unrest erupted Saturday following the beating of an elderly man earlier in the week, which prompted far-right calls for revenge against the town's large migrant community. Among those arrested were suspects in the original assault and others involved in clashes, ABC News reported. Police reinforced security in the town, where about a third of the 42,000 residents are foreign-born, many working as agricultural laborers. SpaceX successfully launched Israel's Door 1 communication satellite early Sunday aboard a Falcon 9 rocket. Built by Israel Aerospace Industries, Door 1 is the country's most advanced communication satellite and will operate in geostationary orbit for up to 15 years. The mission, initially kept secret, was later confirmed by the IAI. The Falcon 9 booster completed its 13th flight and then landed on a drone ship, Spaceflight Now has reported. Door 1 is part of Israel's national strategy to ensure independent communications capabilities and features module digital technology for flexible operations. A 19-year-old sanitation worker was killed after falling into a meat grinder while cleaning it at Tina's Burritos factory in Vernon, California. The machine activated unexpectedly around 9:30 p.m. Sunday local time, and then co-workers were unable to stop it in time. Police called it an industrial accident with no foul play suspected. Authorities and workplace safety officials are now investigating, the U.S. Sun has reported. Samuel Bond Haskell Jr., 37 years old, accused of murdering and dismembering his wife and her parents, was found dead by suicide in a Los Angeles jail on July the 2nd. Haskell, the son of a former Hollywood agent, was set to appear in court for a preliminary hearing just days later. He faced 3 counts of murder and a possible life sentence without parole, the USA Today has reported. Authorities called his death a final act that denied the victims' families justice and closure. Dozens have been killed and over 200 wounded in armed clashes between Sunni Bedouin tribal fighters and Druze militias in South Syria, The violence began Sunday after the reported abduction of a Druze merchant and spread to multiple towns, despite government efforts to restore order. Shelling, drone attacks, and house burnings were reported. Israel said it struck tanks moving in southern Syria. The clashes marked the latest sectarian violence in Syria, where the Druze minority fears for its safety amid ongoing instability in the country, the BBC reports. Calls for calm have been issued by officials and Druze religious leaders. German backpacker Caroline Wilga, 26 years old, was rescued after surviving 11 nights in Western Australia's outback. After crashing her van and hitting her head, she wandered off in a confused state, eventually surviving by drinking from puddles and sheltering in a cave. Found barefoot and exhausted over 30 kilometers from her van, she thanked those involved in her rescue and expressed deep gratitude for the community's support, the BBC reported. Police called her survival a matter of sheer luck. Connecticut man Jose Morales, 48, was sentenced to 65 years in prison for the 2019 murder of his girlfriend, Christine Holloway, whose 14-month-old daughter, Vanessa, remains missing. Morales was convicted of murder and evidence tampering, but has not been charged in the child's disappearance. At sentencing, Holloway's family demanded answers about Vanessa. Morales, who claimed intruders killed Holloway and kidnapped the baby, admitted to tampering with the crime scene and being high on PCP, CBS News reported. The judge called the crime vicious and Morales a threat to society. Retired Army officer and Air Force civilian employee David Slater, 64 years old, pleaded guilty to conspiring to share classified information about Russia's war in Ukraine on a foreign online dating platform. While working at U.S. Strategic Command in Nebraska with top-secret clearance, Slater transmitted secret military details to someone posing as a woman in Ukraine. He faces up to 10 years in prison, with sentencing set for October, CBS News reports. Prosecutors will recommend a sentence of just under 6 years, citing his knowing betrayal of national defense secrets. The Senate confirmed President Trump's first judicial nominee of his second term, Whitney Hermendorfer, in a 46-42 party line vote to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. Her confirmation replaces an Obama-era judge and further shifts the court rightward. A former clerk for Justices Alito and Barrett, Hermendorfer has defended Tennessee's abortion ban and gender-affirming care restrictions. Democrats opposed her nomination, citing her limited experience and alignment with conservative culture war issues, Politico reports. The vote marks a continuation of President Trump's effort to reshape the federal judiciary, though fewer vacancies remain after Biden's judicial appointments. Private fundraiser. Former President Barack Obama urged Democrats to, quote, toughen up and stop, quote, navel-gazing after their 2024 election losses. He criticized those who once stood firm but now seem intimidated by Trump's agenda, calling on Democrats to actively defend their values and support strong candidates in upcoming races. Obama emphasized the need for courage, warning against sitting on the sidelines while democratic norms are under attack, MSNBC has reported. A fast-moving wildfire on the Grand Canyon's north rim destroyed the historic Grand Canyon Lodge and dozens of other structures, forcing the area to close for the season. Sparked by lightning on July the 4th, the Dragon Bravo fire grew rapidly due to hot, dry, windy conditions. About 50 to 80 buildings were lost, including the visitor center and employee housing, the Associated Press reported. No injuries were reported, but visitors and staff were evacuated, with warnings about possible chlorine gas exposure after the wastewater plant burned. 70 people were arrested in the United Kingdom on Saturday during protest against the government's decision to designate Palestine Action as a terrorist organization. Most arrests in London, Manchester, and Cardiff were for showing support for the now proscribed group. The ban follows a June break-in at an RAF base where activists caused $9.4 million in damage protesting UK military support for Israel, NBC News has reported. Membership or support for Palestine Action is now punishable by up to 14 years in prison. Russian attacks killed at least 7 people and injured 17 across Ukraine since Saturday, Ukrainian officials have said. President Zelensky reported over 1,800 drones, 1,200 guided bombs, and 83 missiles used against Ukraine in a week, calling it intensified terror. The front lines remain mostly stable, with slow Russian advances, ABC News has reported. Russia claims to have captured a couple of villages in the Donetsk region, while a Ukrainian drone attack killed 1 civilian and injured 6 in Russia's Belgorod region. 2 fatal skydiving accidents are under investigation in Illinois. On Wednesday, a 40-year-old experienced skydiver died in a mid-air collision during a group jump near the Chicagoland Skydiving Center. A second skydiver was injured. Earlier in the week, Dr. No Liu, a newly licensed solo skydiver, died during a jump in LaSalle County after losing control despite deploying his parachute. Multiple agencies, including the FAA and the NTSB, are investigating both incidents, ABC7 News has reported. Skydiving fatalities remain rare, with only 9 reported nationwide last year. First responders recovered the body of a driver on Saturday after their truck cab plunged off the Delaware Memorial Bridge early Friday morning. The cab crossed 3 lanes, crashed through a concrete wall, and fell into the river. Crews located and recovered the cab and the driver's body with a crane and a barge, ABC News has reported. The cause of the crash is under investigation, but no other vehicles were involved. Women were killed and 2 others wounded in a shooting at a church in Lexington, Kentucky on Sunday after a suspect shot a state trooper during a traffic stop. The suspect carjacked a vehicle, fled to Richmond Road Baptist Church, and opened fire before being shot dead by police. The victims were a 72-year-old and a 32-year-old woman. Police said the suspect may have known people at the church, the Associated Press has reported. The trooper is in stable condition. The incident remains under investigation. French President Emmanuel Macron announced an additional $7.6 billion in military spending over the next 2 years, citing unprecedented threats from Russia, nuclear proliferation, terrorism, and cyber attacks. He aims to increase France's annual defense budget to $74.8 billion by 2027, doubling the level from when he took office in 2017. In a Bastille Day speech, Macron warned that freedom in Europe is under serious threat and called for stronger European defense, support for Ukraine, and closer nuclear defense cooperation with Britain, the BBC has reported. He also ordered a strategic dialogue on the role of France's nuclear arsenal in Europe's security. Ryan Ruth, accused of attempting to assassinate President Donald Trump, wrote a letter to the judge overseeing his case, requesting the death penalty and proposing a prisoner swap with U.S. adversaries, even suggesting he be sent to Siberia. In the letter, Ruth expressed despair, criticized his court-appointed attorneys, and said he now wants to represent himself. He apologized for being a burden on the court and reflected on personal dignity and morality, Fox News reported. Ruth is charged in a September 15th plot where he allegedly set up a sniper position near Trump's Florida golf club before being confronted by Secret Service and then fleeing. Bakery Inc. is recalling about 883 loaves of its Lewis Bake Shop artisan-style half-loaf bread because it may contain undeclared hazelnuts, posing a risk of severe allergic reactions for those with nut allergies. The recall covers 6 production lots sold at retailers like Kroger and Walmart in 12 states. No serious injuries have been reported, though one customer had digestive discomfort, CBS News has reported. Affected products can be returned for a full refund. Has added several new sites to its World Heritage List, including the Karnak megaliths in France and the fairy tale castles of King Ludwig II in Germany. The Karnak stones date to 4500 to 3300 BCE and represent one of Europe's densest collections of megalithic sites. The Minoan centers were major hubs of Bronze Age civilization, Euronews has reported. The designation recognizes their cultural value and ensures their protection. California. Solar-powered AI-guided weeding robots are helping farmers control weeds more sustainably. The iGen Element robot uses solar energy and advanced cameras to remove weeds without herbicides, cutting fuel cost and environmental impact. It's already in use on crops like cotton, soy, and sugar beets, reducing labor needs and freeing workers for skilled tasks, Fox News reports. The robots also collect data on crop health, helping farmers make better decisions while lowering their carbon footprint. The cost of mailing a letter in the United States increased by 5 cents on Sunday, with first-class stamps rising from 73 to 78 cents. Metered letters now cost 74 cents, domestic postcards 61 cents, and international mail $1.70. This marks the 10th rate hike in 9 years. The USPS plans further increases through 2027, NBC5 Chicago has reported. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has discussed reforms, including potential privatization or moving USPS under White House control, though such changes would need congressional approval. Ukraine says it has killed 2 Russian agents who resisted arrest after being tracked down following the assassination of senior intelligence officer Colonel Ivan Voronik in Kyiv on Thursday. The suspects had been monitoring Voronik's movements before he was shot in broad daylight. Ukraine's security service, or the SBU, coordinated the operation with the national police, the BBC has reported. The killing comes amid record Russian airstrikes on Ukraine and ongoing heavy fighting in the east while ceasefire talks remain stalled.